What's up everybody, Jason from C&C Exotic Reptiles. Today I'm going to take you through a step-by-step of how to build a Reptile Basic Super 70 rack. I just got in some new racks from Reptile Basic Super 70. I was looking for something smaller for my colubrids, and that's where I decided, let me check these out. They were ready to shipped literally in a week, and I just built my first one. I'm gonna show you that in a second. I have boxes behind me. We're gonna take a look at those, and I'm gonna do a whole time lapse of me building the rack. We'll talk about my takeaways at the end. This is the completed 5-tier Reptile Basics, I guess it's the VE Super 70 rack. So far, to be honest, in this first building, I did screw a couple things up, which were really easy to fix, but I really like the rack. This is the box of the next one I'm gonna be building. I bought 10 tiers for the price. When I bought them, they were $500 with the bins, shipped to my door, and I got the rolling casters on the bottom. Really good deal in my opinion. The tubs are nice. They have these locking pins. Let me build the rest of them. I'm gonna do that time lapse and we'll talk more in depth of my thoughts on this whole rack in general. Before I dive into the rack build, the only thing we're gonna use for this build is a knife to cut open the boxes and a screwdriver. You could be using, or a drill, you could be using a manual screwdriver to do this. All the holes are pre-drilled. I am gonna pause the video at key points to talk about some things that I messed up that you will probably mess up if you don't read the directions as well. Directions are super easy, but let's dive into the actual build. This is what we have in the two boxes. So this is the sides for both sides and the back, and then these are the shelves. There are my tubs for the Super 70. Again, I got the 5-tier. That is the tier rack that we're building. The one caveat that I will tell you about before I dive full time lapse is one of these shelves, if you're using the wheels, has holes on the bottom. So this one right there, see how this one has these little cutouts? This one needs to go on the bottom if you're using casters. If you're not using casters, it doesn't make a difference. But for instance, this rack here, it has the casters, and the reason those holes are there for is to fit this little screw piece. I don't know if you guys can see that in there. It's a little dark, but I'll see if I can, that's probably a better picture in there. But it's to fit this little bracket that goes right into those holes. Right into these holes here, and it holds the wheels in. The wheels are really nice. They have locks on them. I'm impressed overall, but let's get to building. This is what the first tier looks like put together. This is the front, back, sides. As you can see, what I showed you in the video is top B to top B, top A to top A. There's your heat slot cutout, and everything is all grooved really nicely. The only thing you need to be careful of is when you're putting in the screws, you can see there's these little holes that are kind of right there. That's for your screw holes right there. Your screws go in. If you sink them too deep, you're going to crack your plastic. So just be careful if you're using an electric drill. I've been able to monitor mine. I haven't had any issues with it, but I can definitely see somebody who doesn't know how to use a drill doing that. If that's the case, you can always screw them in with the drill close and then tighten them up by hand with a screwdriver. Not a big deal. So let's put in the shelves. I'm not sure if this is how Reptile Basics recommends it based on their directions, but this is how I'm doing it, and it worked well for me. This would be helpful if you had 2 people, but let's put in the shelves and keep building. This is the rack with some of it assembled. So all I did, as you saw in the time lapse, was I assembled the back, the sides, and I put the bottom on. So these shelves are still free floating. You can still pull them up and down. You can see kind of, if I zoom in on this spot here, the screws are in. It has 2 on the bottom, so 2 here, 1 in the middle, and it has 2 on the back. The back screws, my first one, this rack here, I was going to put the back ones in first on this side because I thought it would really suck the shelves towards the back, keep these nice and tight. Everything's really fit, so it's so easy to kind of figure things out. And then you can see, maybe if I zoom in, that's what I was trying to show on the time-lapse piece, is there's a little groove in the back. You can kind of see it there. I'll show it again in another clip, but it's a really nice groove. Hold your heat tape, has a thermostat spot for each one. I like it, so let's keep building. Here's our completed rack. Right now it's almost assembled. The only thing I need to do is put the heat tape in. Heat tape is a little tricky. It's actually really easy and nice, but it took me a minute to figure out the best way to do it. So I am gonna do that on a time lapse. Right here is, again, the completed rack. All I need to do is throw in the heat tape. For some reason, my camera makes it look like the shelves are crooked, but I can tell you they're not. Everything is just all laser fit, so everything aligns perfectly. It all pops into place. The holes are drilled. They make the screws go in straight, and really super easy to build. I'm going to throw in the heat tape. I want to show some tricks on how to do this because this really took me a little bit of time just to figure out. Otherwise, this whole thing took me about 20 minutes to build. This first rack took me about 25 only because I had to switch the shelves. So I put the bottom shelf in the middle. I wasn't paying attention, so it'll take you less if you watch this video or you actually read the directions. So before I actually go into assembling this heat tape, I do want to point out a couple things. It comes in a roll like this, but the directions are a little unclear or maybe incorrect. Maybe I'm just reading them incorrectly, but it comes in a roll. You unravel it, and what the directions tell you to do is to put it into the side slot, but the plug does not fit into the side slot. So basically it says roll it all up and put it in through here so you can pull it out the back. It doesn't work. This won't fit through this hole. So sometime between when they made the directions and when they provided this plug or the size of this rack, it does not fit through this gap. Maybe I'm doing it incorrectly and I just don't know the trick to it, but it will not fit through this hole no matter how I do it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to drop this cord in through here, and then I'm going to pull this back out and start stringing it up a little bit differently. So I'm going to go back to the time lapse because this is, in my opinion, the most time consuming part of the rack is putting the heat tape in. So let's, if this were a little bit bigger, it'd be perfect. Let's do into the time lapse. All right, so now that I actually pulled this cord through, I then fed it back, and I'm gonna start right from the top. And this heat tape goes right into a little groove inside the slots. You push it through, and then you need to go to the other side to kind of pick it up as you keep pushing. This is our finished product. These are two Reptile Basic Super 70 racks, I believe made by Vivarium Electronics. That's what it says on the top at least, but they are stocked and supplied by Reptile Basics. It took a short amount of time to get there, which I really like. The quality is there. It is not up to the same level of standard as like a Freedom Breeder is, but it's still there. These two racks stacked on top of each other fit fairly nicely, except for this little lip that I see over here. This is just a difference between the two rack builds. Otherwise, everything is laser cut. It all fit very nicely. The holes were drilled, and it was really easy to assemble. Let's flip the camera. I'm going to give you my final remarks on these. With these racks, you guys can be the decision maker. If you're looking for a Freedom Breeder rack and you buy these in that place, you're not going to get that. These are not Freedom Breeder racks. They are PVC racks with a really decent build quality on them. Overall, again, I really like the design. It was super easy for me to assemble with just a couple tools. There are things you can do wrong, but they're easily fixed, as I did on my first rack build. These are the two racks, 10 high. For $1,000, you really can't go wrong. $1,000 and shipped to me within a week. I purchased these, I believe, Wednesday. It was Friday when I received them, so took about 9 days or 7 business days. I can't, I mean, you can't beat that shipping time. You're not going to beat that anywhere. So overall, I really like these racks. I think they're really good, specifically for these kind of colubrid snakes that I'm using them for. They might be great for adult ball pythons. For some smaller boas, this could be a nice boa raise-up rack or anything else that kind of fits in this. I do want to show the tub size. So this is a really nice tub size. And I'm going to show it against this Freedom Breeder rack, which I think is your competitor. Now, the old Freedom Breeder racks were nice because their tub sizes were bigger. This tub size is smaller and it actually fits right inside. There's a couple extra inches of floor space, which does make a difference for a lot of snakes, but these racks also have a couple extra inches of height. So it's your trade-off between floor space and height. That's why I got these, because I wanted to get them for my colubrids, and these are for my boas, gives them a little bit more height, gives me some substrate room. If you're using newspaper versus substrate, that height is going to disappear. So overall, you guys be the decision maker. Is the Freedom Breeder worth the money, or do you want to go for a Reptile Basics? This is something I would highly recommend for somebody getting into the hobby. For the price, again, price, the ship time, the build quality, you can't beat it. I don't know how they're going to hold up over time. That might be a follow-up video. The quality of this PVC seems like it's a little flimsy, but I don't know. Maybe it is actually good quality and it's light PVC, built like that for a reason. My guess is over time the shelves are going to start warping. I think this is probably a 5 to 7 year rack before it starts to really deteriorate. But overall, again, my Freedom Breeders, I have some 30-year-old or 20-year-old Freedom Breeder racks, and they're still functioning, they're still good. They're not like my new ones, so everything's going to degrade over time, even us. You guys be the decision maker. I appreciate you watching this video. Make sure to check out my Patreon and my website if you're looking for some cool stuff. And until next week, make sure to give that a thumbs up, hit the bell notification. We'll check in then. Thanks, guys. Keep it moving.